tell me if this worked. Tell me that we're live. Tell me in the chat because I need to see that this is actually working and you have audio and that you can hear me, and I will keep up with you guys on here. Hopefully you guys can actually like hear me and see me, and this isn't going terribly bad. I think we're live. There's probably a slight delay. Struggled there for a minute. I guess my input settings were not working. So we're having a live show. We made it happen. We made it work, everybody. Hi, this is going to be the Monday morning live show. We're going to hang out for an hour and catch up on the week. I plan on doing this every Monday unless I have a guest in which case I might still do it and have guests to talk to you guys. And see what's going on. So hi everybody in the chat. Welcome to the new space. I hope the audio is okay and you guys can hear me all right. There is lots of construction going on outside. They are sinking massive 25-foot pilings into the ground with a huge I don't know what you would call it, like an impact driver. It's like dropping a massive 50-ton weight down to drop these pilings into the ground. So there's a lot going on. I want to, focus is going to be a bit soft because right now my capture card, my Blackmagic capture card has died, or it's because it's too old for the 4K cameras I'm trying to push through it. So I need to acquire a new one, but it's not really in the budget for this month. We're basically in a period where, so I'm just using a shitty little webcam right now. I'm using a Logitech webcam to make this work because Wirecast will do 4K inputs, but will not, unfortunately, take it from this Blackmagic. And I tried my older cameras, but I don't know, for some reason this capture card I think maybe is just too old or burned out. And I do love Blackmagic, but they're expensive, and I need to upgrade my tech. So the goal here is that you guys got to hang out with me in the studio a little bit this time around. This is actually the first time, apart from doing it on my phone, I think this is the first time I've done a live stream from the studio ever. It's the first time I've done an AMA. And I wanted to come up with a format for this and actually talk about what the structure for this was going to be, because usually I just free format, but I actually want to do something a little more structured this time. So I'm gonna do this in 3 parts. We're gonna talk about the news, what's going on this week, talk about the studio, so the plan, and then we're gonna talk about what's coming up. And I figured that will give you guys some fodder to ask me some questions in the chat, hear some opinions, get a little more unvarnished, what's going on in my brain. Eventually I do want this to be a patron chat, so this will be an unlisted video, and it'll go to the patrons live, and then it's going to go out to the rest of you guys on YouTube pre-recorded, but they'll be the ones asking the questions, getting to hang out with me, because I feel that's only fair. And so everyone will get the video, but the patrons will actually get to hang out and do stuff. What's cool about this too is if this format works, there's a bunch of other patron exclusive stuff I want to start doing. Jay and I were talking about doing a movie night, because one of the things that we all seem to have in common is that we and consume the same media, which is going to be a big focus going forward, talking about music, talking about films, talking about books, doing the book club reviews and stuff as well, is something that we've been chatting about doing, and having this be this, testing this format is for more than one reason, because it's an ability for me to hang out with you guys and interact, right? So having a private Discord where we can chat while it's going on will be something we can do in the future. Audio's fine. That'll be cool. Sweet. Pile driver. So let's see what's going on in the chat and say hi to everybody. It's just see who's here and who's been waiting around. I'm excited that people actually hung out long enough for this to start, because I thought I hit 11 as the start time when I did the ingest for Wirecast, because I was just, at this point, this is just a test. I'm just making sure everything works. And it did not work. So I hit 10 o'clock instead. So there's been people hanging out in here since 10. So for those of you who did so, thank you very much for hanging out for so long. Is this live show sponsored by Tim Hortons? No, actually, this live show is sponsored by President's Choice, which is our higher level no-name brand. Although we do also have a no-name brand called No Name, which I think is also the same company, which is ironic. In Canada, No Name, sort of Kirkland, is kind of what that would be in the US, although we do have Kirkland here in Canada too. It's kind of what President's Choice is in the US. But no, this is President's Choice coffee today. I didn't spring for the Tim Hortons grinds. That's too spendy. Honestly, one of the nice things about having that little kitchenette back there was one I could make like food for the kids while they were watching me struggle with moving around lumber and like construct things. But two, I've had a coffee pot here forever and it was literally like buried. And then I think something happened. I think the carafe got dropped or something and it broke. And like, we just didn't have coffee pot here for a long time. But being able to come in here in the morning now and like make my to-do list for the day and make a pot of coffee has been one of the great pleasures of this whole renovation. Having that little kitchenette was great. And so, yeah, that's the amount of bought Tim Hortons coffee. It's usually the guests being like, can I bring you a coffee? And I'll say yes. That'll usually be what ends up on camera. There won't be quite as much Tim Hortons product placement going on here anymore. And they haven't bothered to sponsor us. Like, screw those guys. Come on, for real. Don't need to shill for them for free. They know what's up. What else we got here? Oh yeah, Mark Atkinson says the Tim Hortons is in the UK now, but they don't have big cups. Well, I mean, so I think the crime of like Tim Hortons opening places worldwide isn't not that you don't get to experience Tim Hortons, but the thing with Tim Hortons in Canada, and it's more regionally occupied. I found when I lived in the States, like the different states have different like quick, cheap coffee providers. But the closest parallel that I can probably say to how Canadians feel about Tim Hortons is the way anyone from Massachusetts feels about Dunkin' Donuts, right? They get their Dunkies in the morning. It's like it's just a weirdly cultural thing. I don't know if because there isn't a million Tim Hortons, just having one in your country, it wouldn't be fast and cheap the way it is here. And that's what we are compared to Starbucks. It's coffee. It's just coffee. It's fast. It's cheap. It's loaded with sugar usually. For those that like their coffee sweet. Greg says, is Ash late for his own show? When am I not late for my own show, Greg? Come on. This is, if I ever get to do one of these that isn't just riddled with tech problems, it'll be an absolute friggin' miracle. But yeah, we got this actually working. Mark says this is not a hot party as I was expecting. Who else is here? My man Dave Switzer. I'm hoping I get to see him on the weekend because I'm going to be in his town. I'll be in Halifax on the weekend for HalCon, doing an appearance. So I'm hoping I get to say hi to Dave in real life. Anthony's here. Dan Sprinkle's here. Rob Mooney's here. My boy Chris Kohler from Slow Death Games is here. Everybody say hi to Chris. If you guys were lucky enough to get one of his copies of Record Collectors Are Pretentious Assholes, which is his new game, count yourself super lucky. I'm so pumped for that game. I am very excited about it. And Rob actually says, actually working, we can see and hear you. I think that's the amazing thing, is that even though I couldn't get the ingest to work for like a hot minute, there's still actual functioning audio and video. that part I've gotten better at. It's the does the internet work here problem. I need to find a better, like, there's just like the most basic ass, this is burning through my data. This is like a hotspot internet we're on right now. I gotta get this place properly wired for internet in the next like few weeks, and we should be good to go. What else we got? Ash beside one fern. Well, now technically this is a prayer plant, or some people call them rabbit's foots. So it's not actually, I don't think it's technically a fern. Yeah, I don't know if it's technically a fern, but I do like my one fern. There's several plants in here. All the plants that were living on my porch, it's almost below freezing here now. So all the plants that were living on my porch all summer, all like the tropicals and like the money trees, and I have a bunch of like avocados the kids grew too. And then like my monsteras and stuff all moved into the studio, which is nice because they could never have lived here before. So having this place actually be able to host them, I'm very happy about. Taylor's here. Treadhead is here. Dan Sprinkle's here. Jonas is here, but he redacted his message, much like I redacted the name of my leader in whatchamacallit in the last war. Alien Anderson's here. I think it's Alien. Alien, maybe? Mason's here. Jake's here. Commodus Leetdorf's here. Algebra King's here. Liam Fishwick's here. Jonas is here. Earthman Brick is here. It says, congrats on my success with Blaster. The congratulations need to go to Greg now. To be fair, Greg was always, I think, the best part of Blaster, because he's a wildly talented graphic designer and made that magazine look as cool as it actually looks. So he should get big congrats for having relaunched it as the mini game magazine that it is now. Matt Tarpley's here. Lucius Fury here. Swarm here. Thankwol's Layers here. Seth's here. Ham Pants is here. I want Ham Pants now. I don't know. I think we should just play a game from now on where you guys make me read your names out loud. Hand pants, the mental image of that is incredible. Slow Death says, remind me to bring you some coffee beans next time I see you. My pal roasts beans. I'm not a coffee drinker, but it is really good. I believe you, and you live in a warm enough equatorial place that I'm betting that the coffee that is grown down there is amazing. Treadhead's Workshop says that should be the name of your Monday morning show, riddled with technical difficulties. I mean, yes, that should be the name of my life. If my my autobiography, I'll write that in the future, riddled with technical difficulties. Yes. Mason says, do you have any plans to cover or play the new Stargrave book, Bold Endeavor? Yeah, I do. I don't have a copy of it yet, though. I have a PDF. They sent me a review PDF of it, but I don't have a physical copy, and I'm only reviewing physical copies because I think part of the integrity of doing reviews is you have to actually handle the product. Like if one of the things that you guys, my integrity basically requires me to do that, I guess. I shouldn't put that on you guys. I need you guys to be able to see the physical product and have handled the physical product to do that stuff. So when I get my hands on one, yes, I'd like to cover it at some point. But it's behind the queue right now for we're doing the Doomed, because I'm super pumped to do that right now. Me and Chase are like building and painting that. And then Jay and I have a couple projects on the go as well that are kind of eating up my indie game time, and then my like mainstream game time right now. The mics, which I think I'm just gonna start calling them the mics. They're kind of like the gyms from. I need one more mic to come back, and then I'll have 3 mics, so I can have mics like I have gyms. And I've been watching Shorzy, so yeah, the gyms they're all heavy hitters. So the mics basically have been painting Warcry. That's kind of the mainstream thing I've been doing for the last little bit. So Bold Endeavor is one of those things where like, I kind of want to keep with my Rogue Trader theme for Stargrave, which means I need to do it sort of like appropriately themed. And that requires a little bit more work than just like hammering out some Stargrave classics and playing it. But I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but I'm excited for the rules. Like the including your ship more in the warband, I think is a cool idea. And the way that works, kind of like the Refuges did in Last Days, I think is going to be a neat like carry forward. I'm missing the chat as I answer questions because I need to put my phone down so I don't just skip ahead and go too quickly. And Mason sent me a super chat, so that was going to be, I needed to actually answer that question, I think, with some thought. Pacha says, does this mean you finally have internet? I do, but it's not good. As you can tell, having internet and having good internet are 2 separate things. We've got BK here. We got the Filthy Count just lounging near Slaughter Beach. Very nice. Yes, I'm very happy with my I made an acoustic panel out of this. So one of the things I was trying to do to not just have like standard acoustic panels everywhere, although I needed to make those to test out how I was going to do it when I did the soundstage, was making like more interesting looking ones. And so finding these art prints, like the one I've got of MF Doom and this is like one of those you would see if you were in high school and you were in somebody's basement, like playing video games and doing drugs. This is the kind of poster that it has like the brass like eyelets, and it would usually be like a lion, you know what I mean? Like, or like, like an Iron Maiden Eddie or something like that posted up there. I remember these flags, and as soon as I saw one, I was at the Slaughter Beach, Toronto like concert or tour date with Christian, and they had these on the merch table, and so I remembered seeing them, and so I grabbed one and I made an acoustic panel out of it. So it's actually mounted on like 1 inch, 2 inch. I don't think you can hear it. It's mounted on like 2 inch. Like I made a frame basically behind it, and then I put batten, which is like the kind of stuff that you would have like inside a quilt basically, and felt behind it so that it's actually a giant like sound baffle for in here, which is why the audio is unusually good, and I can sit with like mics and record like a really, really good audio right now because the EQ in this room is fantastic. There's not really any bounce anymore for the audio panels being everywhere. But yes, Slaughter, this album cover is one of my like all time I think clutch album covers. I do like a lot of their album covers. I think this one stands up high as far as audio covers go, or album covers go. And I have the record too, but I framed it. I put it at home. It's not here. Greg says, lucky you, it's -2 in Cambridge. Yeah, well, this is like, I don't know. This is like the warmest part of Ontario I've ever lived in, I think. So it doesn't ever get that cold. Who else we got? Is it warmer in the new studio with all the baffling? No, it's warmer. So one of the things that made it very cold in the studio space before was the amount of crap in front of the radiators. There's like two like metal like wall bangers basically that are the only heat sources for the front office. Then the back office has that jet engine gas blower. I've never actually been in the back office in the back warehouse in the wintertime, so I don't know how warm it's going to be. But so far, the not having huge piles of crap in front of them has meant that the heat in here is fine. This room's always been fine, just because it's small and you can close it up to warm it up. I used to have a space here in the other one because the fact is that those desks and just piles of stuff were in front of that one, and because the door was always opening and closing, it kept it really, really cold in here. But I've resealed the door, which is one thing because it fell off once, which is a whole other story. I resealed the front door with just like the weather stripping, and now that rat is exposed, it should be fine in here in the wintertime. We got Uncle Buck here. Who else we got? We got Jonas Kaufman. Probably sick of hearing this, Ash, but really digging your new stuff, and I'm glad you're finding such fulfillment in it. Yeah, I gotta say, it's been... Yeah, and I'm excited for the future because making things more in tune, I think, with making things that are different. Having an idea and like chasing it, and having the space now where I can just sit down and do it, and I actually like being here, I think has made a big difference. Jake C's here. Ham says, I'd like to see more Battletech aces. Me too, actually. Chase and I, so I have Chases and Mikes. So Chase 2, Chase Strollenberg, or Chase 1, they can fight over it. I won't do like Chase Alpha and Chase like Beta or whatever. Chase Strollenberg, Chase S is coming into play some Battletech next week, hopefully, when I get back from Halifax. So yeah, we'll have some ability. It's two weeks after I get back from Halifax. So we'll have some more Battletech coming. I think it'll be classic Battletech actually on the channel. So the gyms are amazing. Jake says the gyms are fantastic. Aren't the gyms just great? Aren't the gyms just treasures? Sean Morrison says, loving the changes and you've been doing that over the past 2 months. Glad to see you're overcoming the obstacles, but before you, can't wait to see more ITS 15 content on the channel. Yeah, I actually, that's in like part 2 here, where I wanted to talk about ITS 15 because we still don't have the decks. We still don't have the mission decks here locally, and I need to get my hands on them. I do have J's. Yeah, I have J's and Chases and Mike's and Chris's. Yep, I got lots of them. Thankful War says, hope you're feeling well, and the kids are too. They are, thank you. James Young says, is there an old game you wish you could cover that you haven't been able to because of the needing to find parts? No, almost never. The couple that like I really needed to find parts for, I've just like, it seems like the people who are in my like sphere either already had them, or if there was something weird that like I needed to find, like when we did the Hero Quest like rebuild, immediately someone who was on my Facebook page or on Patreon was like, yep, I got that piece. I have 25 of them. Cause like when you collect old crap the way that I do, you always have something someone else needs, which is why I hang on to so much of it. Cause if someone comes here and they're working on a project and they're missing a piece, like they walk out the door with so much stuff. I try and get as much stuff out of here as I can just when people visit. So I can't think of anything at the moment that I would need. Discount says, hey, nice studio. Thank you. BK said, love the Fighting Fantasy content. You're doing a great job. Thank you. There's more on Thursday. So Jay and I played the Advanced Fighting Fantasy intro mission last week, and I'm still editing it because it does take a lot longer to edit the videos now. But the second part of that will be up on Thursday. Lucius Fury says it's dumping snow in Edmonton right now. I mean, when isn't it dumping snow in Edmonton? A light 12 to 15 centimeter dusting of snow is going to be in Calgary today, says Phil Morris. Anthony D says, what city do I live in now? Still in St. Catharines. The last 8 years, basically. St. Catharines in Niagara. Discernal Work says, it's hard to get a sense online of how great the new space is. Such a massive change. Thank you. It is a massive change. And I think what people actually, that's been like the comment of the people that I've like had come in. My friends have come in and seen it recently. Is yeah, if they come in, they come back for a couple weeks. I've usually done something else crazy and insane and slightly large, and they are like, where did you find this? Prozac for you says, I remember forever ago you did a converting and kids passion session, making minis for last days and talking about life in Letterkenny. I'd love to see another episode like that. I'm actually running a panel at HalCon about doing pop culture stuff in your content. Which I'm really excited about. And I was going to reference that episode, doing like doing Letterkenny and having them be like part of my last days thing, and how like all of our interests tend to overlap. Like wargaming is the thing that I started this YouTube channel about, but the thing we almost always talk about more is like the movie references and the books that we're reading and like the games that we're playing, and the like it almost inevitably is like that like we all share like common interests sort of in a big spectrum. And I have a whole bit I'm doing, and I'm in a panel at HowCon about that, because I think that's going to be, that's the difference between like knowing who your audience is and not knowing who your audience is, and what you have in common with your audience. And I think that's the thing that we all have in common, actually, you guys and myself and my friends, is that there's like that we all seem to swim in the same like media for the most part, or it overlaps like more than almost anybody else that I've kind of come across. And maybe it's our age, maybe it's just like what we grew up on, maybe it's how we grew up on stuff. But yes, I'm excited to do more stuff like that. Hey, it's Victor. Hey, Ash, long time no see. The new studio looks fantastic. Totally looking forward to the new direction. Thanks, Vic. I hope you get to come see it soon. Yeah, shoot me an email and come down and say hi. Mason says, I've been enjoying the new content. I really hope things are going better for you financially. You seem to be relaxed and enjoying yourself in the last several videos. I mean, yes. And also, like, it's funny how, like, even just watching, like, the view count on a studio update video versus the view count on, like, another battle report, that was where I started to figure out, like, no, the thing that I should be making more of is the like what goes into doing this and this kind of stuff, which is why I wanted to start doing a live show on like a regular schedule, because I think that not doing that has been me just so much of what happens in this studio, and the discussions we have and the conversations that I've been capturing recently for 8 years got left on like the cutting room floor. And that's what makes a YouTube channel successful, is knowing what you guys are actually tuning in for and watching. And I'm making a space that will capture that, basically. And that can allow more people to come and participate in that is like the goal. And that has been rewarding. You can just see it. Like you guys can physically see the metrics going up in that regard. So yes, it has for sure. Jake C, the Doom looks really stripped down and fun. What jumps out to you as a game designer and player for what makes you want to play it? You know what? I'm going to pause for a second, because I do want to answer that question in the coming up section. But I realized I said I was going to do a format, and then I skipped all around. And we just like dove right into an AMA, which is fine, because this show is going to be a mess just based on the fact that it was completely unplanned, and I announced it with like half an hour of lead time. So first I want to get into the news. Oh, geez, I hit the mic. I want to get into the news. I want to talk about what the news for this week was, kind of like generally in wargaming. And we jumped into like a couple of these pieces already, because they just happened. So we'll lead with the big stuff. We'll lead with Games Workshop, because obviously they dominate the news cycle. I want to get out of the way so we can talk about other stuff. And the first thing in the news that I was noticing a lot of talk about, and I wanted to get you guys to ask me to pick my brain about if you had any questions about what I think about it, is the Old World. We saw a bunch of miniatures for Warhammer the Old World, and the Burtonians in particular, like the Foot Knights. We saw that they're returning with a lot of the old plastics, like the Plastic Knights of the Realm are coming back. And that sort of like teaser train got me thinking about the Old World and how do I feel about it? Because in one regard, I've been stockpiling miniatures to play Warhammer Fantasy Battle with again, for quite some time. And I am excited about them. I think that I'd love to paint lots of old Perry sculpts, lots of old like Warhammer sculpts again. And I don't mind rebasing them on 25 mil bases. That's not going to do anything for me. Like, honestly, I can still play 6th edition fantasy with that, and it won't matter. Like, no one's going to care. It's not going to be a big deal. And I'm fine with lots of these sculpts coming back, but I did want to see what your thoughts were on that and what your guys' questions were about that, because I think that's a big sort of like reveal. And I'm very curious, because I'm interested in seeing that the Old World 1 doesn't seem to be what we thought it was in the beginning. Like the original sort of like media push for it was all about Cathay and Kislev, which ended up being more to do with what's it called, the Warhammer Total War release instead, and we don't seem to be getting that. We seem to be getting Bretonians, and it feels like they're switching streams a bunch, and that now we're getting like tons of like cool new model hype. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are about it. Personally, I think it's cool they're diving into Bretonians, because I think doing Empire would be like a trap a little bit and would coincide with Cities of Sigmar too much, whereas the Bretonians are more distinctly still old world, and they don't have an analog in the like the new sort of like Age of Sigmar zeitgeist. There's nothing really that's like them, unless you count the Stormcast themselves as being like kind of like monastic and knightly. So I think they are uniquely positioned as being like a specific thing in Warhammer that you can kind of dive into and redress. The one thing I will say is they feel less dark. They feel slightly less Warhammer to me. They're not grim and dark. Does that make sense? Like they don't have the same sort of like, I guess they're a bit maybe too bright and shiny looking so far. Maybe that's just the newness of the sculpts, and maybe that's that they've lost some of their like historical interpretation stuff that they had the last time around, that they had in the old days, because they were, you know, based on like Saxon minis from the Perry line, like Perry historicals and Angles, and like Normans. Yeah, I don't know. There's something that feels like they're great sculpts and they're beautiful. They just they don't capture the same feeling, I think, that I used to have for Bretonians. And I'm not super sure what that is. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys think about it. So let's look at the chat and see what you guys have been saying. Someone says, the first thing someone says, I'm excited for the return of the Crippler. I like that. I haven't made a Warhammer Fantasy Battle video probably in 6 years or 7 years, but everyone still remembers that the name of the loader on my dwarf cannon was the Crippler. And I mean, to be fair, if you've ever seen the loading crew for the dwarf cannon from like 6th and 7th edition fantasy, or no, 7th and 8th edition fantasy, their arms are the biggest. Like these guys have like, each one of them has like 24-inch pythons. You know what I mean? Like they look like they are the most dangerous thing in Warhammer. And every time someone would charge my War Machine crew with like a thing that was to kill War Machine crews, like a flyer or something like that, I'd be like, guys, you're just gonna get the Crippler. And inevitably, even if they all died, the Crippler would cause 1 wound. And like the head cannon for that crew it's lived on somehow, which I think is incredible. Where are we at? I'm excited for the 2-week pre-order and actual trade allocations as I am about the old world. I'm almost as excited about 2-week pre-orders and actual trade allocations as I am about the old world. I mean, that's a whole other topic, but yes, I think the 2-week pre-order period to try and figure out where product is going a little more concisely is a big deal. Cedrox is a Skaven player. I don't like it. Obviously, I could completely see why. Although weirdly, I feel like the Skaven army in AOS would translate the best back into Warhammer, because they clearly are still just the Warhammer minis. Like they would rank up fine too, which I think is weird. Also remember, Skaven don't exist in the Warhammer world, or that's what everyone says. Joseph Johnson says the old world looks amazing. I still feel we need a new Mordheim game though. Yeah, I think having, it's funny because the 25th anniversary of Mordheim is next year. So if they're going to mine that nostalgia vein, I feel like it would be coming next year. I think the problem with remaking Mordheim though, of any Games Workshop game, you cannot recreate Y2K zeitgeist today. I think it would be cool. It'd be great to see it. I think I'd be super happy to have like a today's sort of like technology level Mordheim game, but I don't think it would feel the same, I guess is what I'm going to say. Any armies not on the list of properly supported minis that you wish were, like your Poor Dark Elves? I mean, obviously my Ogres, which are not going to be on there. No, I don't care, to be honest, which armies will be in there and won't be, because they'll do like a Legends list. Like guaranteed they'll do something where we can bodge our way through. I'm not really worried about that. If it's like the Horus Heresy rules wide, that would be good, but worry too much Resident in a side game that doesn't get enough support. I mean, yes and no. So here's the thing that I feel about Horus Heresy that's good. They make a Horus Heresy edition and then they leave it the fuck alone. I'm fine if the old world is more like that. Don't give me a complete game, which the Horus Heresy was basically at release, you know, complete enough that you could dive into it for a long time, and then just let the damn thing marinate. Let me sit on it and play it for a while. It's the reason why people like dead games. They don't change out from underneath them, and they can really like build a project and go away from it and come back to it and go away from it and come back to it and have it be the same. Supported to me doesn't mean you get something new all the time. I don't give a shit about that. Supported to me means I can buy it. Well, geez, I can still buy it 6 months from now, and I have like the stuff I need to play it when it gets launched. Jake C says the old world's infantry sculpts seem to be the old sculpts from AOS, at least the Bretonians, I think. Yeah, but I don't think the Foot Knights existed. I'm pretty sure Foot Knights are new. Thankful Sir says I have enough models. I just hope the game will be good enough to drive me to buy more new models. If the game's not feeling like fantasy, I'll just keep playing 6th and older editions instead. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like 6th edition is the most complete game they ever put out. It has siege rules, campaign rules, skirmish rules in one book. Like the whole book has everything you need to play that game forever. Sensi, I don't think the old rule will move the numbers GW expects. Also, I don't think that they don't just revive the old armies for both. I mean, they might if it sells. I think it's an investment gamble, right? Like they'll bring back enough people can play each army, and then if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I kind of agree with you, though. I think this is being made very specifically to try and get a certain cadre of people to be purchasing again from Games Workshop, and I think that the numbers of those people probably aren't high enough that it's really going to matter that much. K-Trader35 says, Old World was before my time. I didn't like AOA. I think he means AOS. So I'm very excited for more available entry point for Old Worlds. I think Warmaster would be even better, though. I think Warmaster Comeback would be very cool. Matt says, I'm a bit disappointed they seem to have pivoted away from Kislev and Cathay. Yeah, I feel like maybe there was like a timing thing there. Like they had originally planned for it to come out around the launch of Total War, and then it didn't. And then they were just like, well, off we go. Somewhere else. Like, we'll just do something else instead. Oh man, so many new comments. Okay, so I'm there's 6th edition for life. So I'm gonna move on because we are running out of time. It's like 11:38 already. I'm gonna go until like 12:15 because obviously I don't want you guys to have to sit here and listen to me ramble for too long. And I want to actually move through the rest of the stuff. So the second thing, and this is more this affects me, so it's kind of a gripe. This news, the Warhammer Plus subscription is still blocked in Canada. So annoying. One, because I wanted to do a series where I actually did like some breakdowns of Warhammer Plus TV shows that I now can't do because I can't watch them. I didn't get to see the end of my subscription expired in September. And so I don't have my subscription anymore, which sucks. I got the last model. I got the cool Chaos Lord. And then I went to re-up and then it just says this website isn't accessible in Canada. It's blocked in Canada. I'm pretty sure I know why. I mean, I think it's like 99% probably to do with the fact that we have to have French and English language as like a toggle in app. And I'm sure the French language of all of the 40K app stuff exists. And Warhammer Plus stuff probably exists. But for whatever, or maybe it's even like French language options for the streaming need to exist, which they may or may not. But for whatever reason, I cannot get Warhammer Plus right now in Canada. And 9 times out of 10 when something like that happens, it's because of language options, because we have laws about making sure that things are equally accessible in both of our national languages, with your French or English. And I'm not mad about that. That's not at all I'm not upset that that's the case, because that's how it should be. We have two national languages. But the fact that there's not just like a fix done already is just super annoying. So I don't know if anyone else is going through this issue. You can still use the army builder to make one army list for 40K, but basically I'm locked out of being able to use my list builder. I can't watch any of the Warhammer stuff. It's super like, it's just a pain in the ass. And a VPN won't work because the VPN won't allow me to, it's my shipping address. It's the address of my credit card. Like I can't even pay for it. Any address, and they require shipping address because they require the place to ship your free model to. So I can't even VPN my way around as far as I can tell. And the VPN obviously won't work on my phone either. So for whatever reason, I cannot get around it. It's a giant pain in the ass. Hopefully it comes back soon. People keep saying VPN, and I'm like, no, I can't, because they need my shipping info to give me the model. And so there, and it's also already attached to my Warhammer account, which is used to like pipe all the rule books and stuff through. So it's very much inaccessible to me right now. It's a giant pain in the ass. I'm not having a good time with it. What else do we got going on? So the next one is the ITS conversation we were already having, and the global On Tabletop is running a global event for the ITS season 15. So when they do these global events, it's basically like a campaign theater. You get to play in different areas and stuff like that. And I was looking at doing some content for it, but as I said earlier, because the ITS decks weren't available yet, and the missions are all based on ITS 15, I couldn't really do it and make content because I can't get the damn decks. And yeah, it just feels like a bit of a, I don't know. It just feels like a bit, I'm not as engaged in it this time around as I wish I were, because the ITS stuff still hinges on having these physical objects to play the game. And I think it's just an object lesson. And I get that it's all timing and it's not super in control of like the people producing it, but I think it is an object. Your game is mostly free game assets, but you have like a single physical product that's impeding. You will still sell those physical products if you make it free. Like you will still sell ITS decks. You would probably still sell out of ITS decks if you made that deck still a free thing that's part of the ITS pack, because people pay for convenience. People would pay just as much money probably to print, sleeve, and cut all those decks as they would to buy the physical deck. So like it just doesn't feel like at this point it still makes sense to have those decks just be locked behind an actual for sale thing. So yeah, just a pain. I wish that it was, because it basically kept me from doing the online campaign thing too, which I wish it wasn't just a barrier. So that was the next bit of news. And then last but not least, the Global Tech demo team is doing, the Global Tech. Did I say Global Tech? The Battletech demo team is doing a worldwide event right now where they will come to your store and run like themed move that like is somehow canon in the timeline campaign stuff. And apparently the rules for these missions to play through them will be free eventually after the campaign concludes. I love the idea of this. It's a very old school like game company idea of having like your global event like track through and you collect results and play games and stuff. I think it's super cool. I wish it wasn't behind the demo team right now. Not that they shouldn't be involved, but with kind of the momentum that Catalyst and Battletech have right now, this feels like it would have been a great retailer support thing. They could have just been given to retailers and they just get their store Battletech hobby champion to run it, as opposed to having to get the demo team to come to your store. Because it just encourages the retailers to buy more Battletech stuff and have Battletech stuff happening in the shop. Like the sales guy point of view of me is like, just don't wait. Just give it away for free now. Like get the excitement, keep the excitement going for this amazing Kickstarter that you just ran and all these like products that you keep in stock and have in stock quite like well. They're not really running out of stock on Battletech stuff. So I love the momentum they got this spring. I wish that this wasn't something that was just gated behind their demo team. And something against their demo team, I'm sure they're doing a great job. It just reduces the number of locations and stores in the world that can use this to stay excited about Battletech right now. So I wish that was other than what it was. So I don't know if you have any comments on that, guys, but it's a thing you can maybe participate in. So if you find a store that's running the Battletech global event, the Smoke Jaguar one, great, go participate. And if you don't, then I guess you're a retailer. You can look forward to maybe getting the copy of the rules in the future. Ewan's here. Hey, Ewan. We're moving on to phase 2, which is what's going on this week here in the studio and what I'm working on. The first thing is going to be some building and painting. So this week I want to do some building and painting. I built and paint, obviously, that Gorger Maw pack last week, and it kind of like broke the what would the term be? It broke the dam on like I haven't done any hobby stuff for a couple weeks because I've been painting walls instead, which felt really good, and I want to keep that momentum going. So I'm starting number 1. I'm starting an ITS 15 slow grow. And Jordan actually suggested this because we couldn't get the decks. He's like, because we wanted to do new armies for the game. We've been talking about doing armies on Tactical Awareness too. And every season we typically start a new army. But I wanted to include more people in it. So I'm going to write a slow grow document for the season to kick off. It goes 5 games. And we're just using the direct action missions. And what that does is it lets us not have to have the ITS decks. We get to play 5 games. It's going to go from 100 points to 300 points. And we'll have full army lists at the start. I'm going to have all the patrons participate too. I'll track progress and post pictures on the Patreon if you want to be part of it. And I'll do it in the Tactical Awareness Patreon as well. I was not voted, but basically I was bullied by Owen and Dan into doing Hawk Islam because it's the only army in Infinity I've never played. So I'm starting that. I've collected all my models together that I need for like my first list, and I'm going to like outline that today. So it's part of this week is getting that stuff assembled and ready to start painting. Number 2, I'm working on tomorrow. Actually, I'll be working on starting a new media series with Jay. This is a series I've been wanting to do. I've been noodling on like how to do for a long time, but it's how to include more than just tabletop stuff. It's about tabletop stuff still, but it's about what influences and what has influenced the tabletop stuff that we enjoy over the years. And what has been influenced by the tabletop stuff that we enjoy over the years. So it's a media series. It's going to be called Grimdark Media. And I'm really excited for it because I think that it's going to allow us to have conversations about stuff that we like that aren't just toy soldiers, which I think is really cool. And it's something that we both really like and we've both been diving into recently. So yeah, expect more stuff to do. Like expect more stuff that kind of like expands that Venn diagram of like the tabletop histories and lores and things that we enjoy, but how it's like presented in media and how it's like influenced media. Talking about video games, talking about movies, talking about books, talking about music. And I think that's going to be a really fun series. And we're gonna kick that off tomorrow with some definitions and also talking about like the nuts and bolts of like, even like the industry, like how does a piece of art turn into a product in stages? And that's a big conversation point we're going to have this week. And then right into this week is HowCon. I fly on Thursday. If anyone is in going to the Maritime's biggest convention, it is my favorite convention in Canada. And I've been to quite a few. I like it way better than Fan Expo in Toronto because it's not so giant and gross and sweaty. Yeah, it is one of the coolest cities, I think, in the world. It's super underrated as far as just being like beautiful and having like incredible food and places to go and feeling small and walkable. And yeah, I'll be there from Thursday on. So I fly Thursday, I'll be there all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, I fly back Monday. So yeah, so look for me there. I'm doing a stream with Nurgle Snurgle, which is going to be really fun for Extra Life. It's going to be a 1000.40k game, I believe. I'll be doing some additional streams too, like Betrayal at House on the Hill, all the usual, like, you know, just me being me, stupidity. But it's all raise money to fight cancer. So if you can tune into those, I'll have them on my social media before they go live. And yeah, donate if you can, because we're going to try and raise more money to fight cancer, which is near and dear to my heart. And that's what's going on with me this week. So let's see what the chat's saying to talk about that, because there's lots of things going on. Slurgical's Soul Tenebris 3D channel says, good morning. Barry Shepard says, just a shame GW is such a small tiny company, it can't afford to fix stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's all there. I'm sure all the French language work is done. It's just about making like a toggle to make that happen. Volcano says, greetings from Germany. It's evening here. Well, greetings to you. Seth says, use my address and they'll throw your minis across the river. No, I'm sorry. I wish. Charlie Cooper says, more live shows, please. It's great to listen to when we're working. Well, it's the plan is to do this every Monday and to include have this stuff go live afterwards and include the patrons and all of it. Mark says, I'm looking forward to the War Transformed bits. Yeah, me too. I was surprised. It's a bigger game than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like a skirmish style game. Like a more along the line of Last War. And it's like a full company, like World War I game. So I'm diving into that too. Ian Smith says they're driving 25-foot long piles in the ground in some kind of a pile driver. Yes, they are. Jess Hunt says, I love the fighting fantasy stuff. Man, we had so much fun doing that. It's crazy to me. Like, and it's funny because like making that stuff I know has like no mass media appeal. as much as we love the fighting fantasy stuff, as much as we appreciate the history of where it comes from, it is not going to get views on YouTube to talk about fighting fantasy. It is a niche thing. But the difference is it resonates so much, I think, with you guys, because so many of my viewers are from my generation, I think. And so much you guys watching and listening are either just the generation after or my generation, or even the generation previous. And we have a different set of things in common, right? Like that like Luddite hand operated video game system meaning so much to us. You have to have been born before there was no other option. You know what I mean? Like it resonates because it was a fulcrum, I think, in gaming. And so, yeah, nobody today is going to care about that. Like they're just not, it's a curiosity. If anything, there's the same level of passion isn't going to exist, but Jay and I are so passionate about it. It was so fun to make. And I was glad it even got the response that it got, because really it doesn't matter. Like, and to as much as I have this feeling of like cherishment for these old game designers and these people who are so like foundational in the industry, nobody cares. Like, not to say nobody cares about them now. The vast majority of people consuming digital media don't know who the fuck I'm talking about and don't have the same feeling of reverence for what it meant to have created this thing that's now a giant corporation. They just see the end result, and they even just see, like, to them, it's the people from 10 years ago, 15 years ago that were the ones that were the big movers and shakers, because they got it the rest of that way. I'm always going back to like see who lit the match. Like the rest of it's not. The rest of it to me is interesting, but it's more custodial than it is formative, you know? So, yeah, I'm very excited about it all, and I want to keep doing more stuff like that, I think, to dig into. Matt says, I agree with you about the Battletech Global event. I can't find a local game store that's running the event that's accessible to me. That's a pain. Taylor says, I'm interested to see how similar it is to the original for the old world. Bretonians were always cool, but what's going on with the Doom Kings? I don't know. I guess we're going to find out. That's probably just being saved for more recent spoilers. Helen Nadal says, I'm already excited for this. So I'm glad you're excited. Battle Bunker HQ says, hey, Ash, I hope you're well. Love the new stuff and look at the studio and the behind the scenes. So thank you so much. Caldorf says, retro or modern video games? Okay, for the media stuff. So that's a good question. And the answer is yes. Because it's about talking about things inspired by, or that were inspired by, or like went together with. And so the time doesn't matter. It'll be, is it before, during, or after? So if I like it, when we start to approach this, it's what bucket does it fall into? Is it inspired? So things that like inspired this idea of grimdark, like Hieronymus Bosch is a painter, a Renaissance painter, a Northern Renaissance painter. His shit looks like a John Blanche drawing, because that's where John Blanche was inspired to learn style and so much of his like look and the hecticness of it and the surrealness of it comes from Bosch's art. By his own admission, he loves it. He's recreated Bosch paintings in like the 40K style. The second bucket is that central sort of like grimdark theme. It's where it was codified. What are these important pieces of media that like codified that stuff and put it in writing and made it into like a property that stood on its own and wasn't just like a collection of like inspirations. And the last part is inspired by, right? So there's like that codification stuff is the middle. Then what was inspired by these sort of like grimdark media things? And that doesn't belong to one company. That doesn't belong to one set of artists or designers. I think the words grimdark came out of a single place, but I think that it's a bigger thing than just one set of artists or companies' creations. And that's why we want to dive into it. Because like you look around my studio, like this is grimdark, right? Like everything in here I have, like the MF Doom is grimdark. Like that stuff is, it has a feeling. It's like that, what was that judge said in those like decency trials in like I think it was the 80s, maybe it was the 70s. I don't know what pornography is, but I know it when I see it. I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. I can't define grimdark, but I know it when I see it. I think it's that same thing. We want to do a series that kind of explores that stuff. Juno the DM says, have fun at Halcon. We moved away, and this is the first time I've missed it in years. Oh no! I feel bad. Slurgical Soul Tenebris 3D channel says, sorry, I missed that. What convention was that? HalCon, the Halifax, fandom, basically convention. Burn Paint says, yeah, Fighting Fantasy stuff has been adorable and great. No, thank you. Phil Abramowitt says, Battletech Global Event is demo agents bring all the models and running through the scenarios. Battletech events should be structured so people can use their own models. Sure. I mean, yes. I think that was my point, sort of, was like, and maybe they'll just do something else for it. Like, that's, to me, that's like, that is the point of getting people to enjoy what they have collectively and to keep kind of like stoking the fire for that, like building a community, which I think is so important for retailers when stuff is sort of gaining momentum. Mason says, I've loved the new stuff that's more game history, probably because I'm old. Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's us just like, we're rolling the nostalgia. Just give me all the, give me all that nostalgia. Give me all the member berries. They're so delicious. Ivanwa says, I don't know anything about Fighting Fantasy, but it was interesting and neat to see. I played a book series called Lone Wolf. Watching you and Jay is usually fun, but so I still watched. And yeah, absolutely. So Lone Wolf was created by two other workshop employees after Fighting Fantasy was created, who went off, one who was a workshop employee, I think one was a friend of his, and they took off and basically wrote their own book series based on that kind of similar idea. Mason says, when things settle down and you complete all the studio updates, you should start a Kickstarter to make a documentary about tabletop gaming history. I don't know if I'm in a position to do that, honestly. Yeah, I don't know if it would be tabletop gaming. I don't know. I'd love to do that, but I think that like other people are so much better positioned to do that. And in fact, a man that I really respect and I used to work with, named Robin Dews, is currently doing that in a book series called Talking Miniatures, with another man I really respect, which is John Stallard, who I used to work for when he was the head of hobby at Games Workshop. So I think there's people who are better placed to capture that than me, and I would recommend checking out their stuff. Talking Miniatures there's a Facebook group now. I think they've got their first volume out. You can pick up. I haven't been able to get my hands on it yet because it's not available on Amazon in Canada, so I'm still trying to get a copy of it. But a lot like Dice Men, written by Livingston and Jackson, I think Robin and John have a really well-positioned vantage point on that history stuff, where I'm like a step too far removed. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. I'd love to talk to those people and capture their stories and hear their stories. But to do like proper justice, I think I'm just a little bit too far away from it, both physically and like just like in time to give it that there's somebody better doing it. And I wouldn't do as good a job as them. So it's not to say I wouldn't enjoy doing it, but I think if I did, it would be in a different way, I think. Bryn Paint says, I grew up in the Game Boy and Super Nintendo era, and I still have a deep love of fighting fantasy. And like, absolutely. I mean, so did I. That's the 80s are when I grew up, right? So like, yeah, I think there's a slice of people that I'm making that for. And I think that those people are the vast majority of my patrons and my watchers. I mean, my demographic on YouTube even, and it's one of the reasons why I don't really like fuck with the YouTube metrics too much, because like, I know that I'm not relatable to a huge number of people. Because what I talk about and what I do is for a certain generation. And so my metrics skew like to 25 to 35. It's niche, right? So I don't worry about that stuff too much. Do I have a lot of YouTube views, or do I have a lot of YouTube subscribers? Because I'm trying to talk to the right people, not the most people, I guess, if that makes sense. What else we got? I need to drink something. I've just been talking for almost an hour. Oh Jesus, it's noon. I got like 15 more minutes of this. Algebra King says, I'll see you at HalCon. Awesome. I'm going to see, hopefully a whole bunch of people. Alan L says, when I was a kid, I remember the Choose Your Own Adventure Sonic the Hedgehog books. It feels like I missed out on Fighting Fantasy. That's funny. Seth says, since Dice Man and Talking Miniatures came out, I've been seeing those more and more fun interviews with the founders. Yeah, I think Chris Peach just did one with John and Robin. I think I saw Robin share it in the Talking Miniatures Facebook group. Slurgical says, I used to play Battletech and Starfleet Battles way back. Starfleet Battles is like, that is not for the faint of heart, man. That is a rulebook to end all rulebooks. That's a rulebook you could end a life with. Jez says, yeah, Bosch, Albrechter, and Bruegel are all grimdark artists. Absolutely. I think that's the thing that like I'd love to dive into more, as opposed to like the specifics of history. That like that more holistic look at the type of media, because you can go back to like Frazetta and stuff as well, being influenced by it. Like Simon Bisley, even so many 2000 AD artists are influenced by it. And I think there's stuff that's like grim and dark that we don't even think as being grim dark. Like I would argue that like Garth Ennis's The Boys, Watchmen, Frank Miller doing like 100 Bullets and Hard Boiled, that stuff is grim dark media. We just don't, it's the themes that we don't in the front of mind kind of recognize as being grim dark. I want to explore all that stuff, which I think would be super fun. Jay Spring says, I was watching on Patreon on my phone, then realized I could come over here and type in the chat. That's right. Yeah. You can definitely type in the comments too on Patreon, and I'll answer them there as well. But if you want to get in real time, yeah, jump on the chat. Surgical Soul Teamer says, Bosch art is crazy. It gave me a lot of inspiration in dark settings as a GM, and that grimdark has added a lot to RPGs. 100%. Like Morkborg, Dungeon Crawl Classics. There's so many like grimdark RPGs now that are chasing that like earlier look. Joseph Alonia says, I started Battletech a few weeks ago. I'm painting Jade Falcons. Awesome. Jez asked if I've seen Andrew May Meridian's new Kickstarter, Total Grimdark Witness. I have not. I have not seen many Kickstarters. Redar says a GMG interview with the likes of Robin and John would be great. I mean, I'd be down for that too, but those are busy guys. John does run Warlord Games. Having them come over here to do an interview would be probably a lot. I'd probably have to go to them. Treadhead's Workshop says your demographic is old farts for those of you who are farts in their soul. That's entirely possible. Chase says, even if you only appeal to 1% of the entire population of North America, that's still 5.79 million people. I mean, sure. I think that's very true. I think that there's things that I think this is that like Venn diagram stuff about the cutting room floor that you and I talked about, Chase, when you were here last week, actually, of like, we have conversations about more than just miniatures in here, and capturing that I think is part of, and planning to capture that even, I think is part of what I'm excited to do in the future. Jess says, big up middle-aged folks in the late 40s. Our skeletons have become more noisy. Jason Palfrey asked if I was a Clutch fan. I mean, I'm literally sitting in front of a 4-foot framed cloth print of the Slaughter Beach cover, which I'm super pumped for. So yes, I am a Clutch fan. Yes. And then Lucius Sphere says, can't forget Berserk when discussing grimdark. No, absolutely not. Oh my God. Akira is grimdark. Like if you look at and it's funny because I would argue that there's probably some Akira in the Rogue Trader rulebook. Cause the manga for Akira is coming out all through the late 70s and early 80s and is like hugely popular. And so I think the Akira, the animated film, the Otomo animated film for Akira is 83. And the reason it's 83 is that they're drawing it in 30 frames per second, which is fucking madness. If you guys know anything about animation in the 80s, I think the average frame rate in animation in the 80s is like 8 to 12 frames, because I think the minimum is 12 frames for projected media. It means you had to draw 12 pictures basically for every second of film that movie was going to be. I think the runtime on it's probably 89 minutes or something like that. That means that they chose to draw 2.5 times as many frames as they normally would have to per second of movie. It took them so long to make Akira, and that's why it's so smooth, so buttery smooth, is that they filmed it in like live action capture as opposed to doing it in like the traditional like Disney animation, like 12 frames per second. It's madness, absolute madness. But yeah, the themes of Akira, of like the psychic awakening and like the weird abominations and stuff, it's total grim. Post-apocalyptic Tokyo, it's totally grimdark. Fist of the North Star. What else we got? Ian Livingston and Steve Jackson was a good source in learning English for me. Choose Your Own Adventure is amazing. 100%. Yeah. I used to read Fighting Fantasy books in French when I was in junior school to increase like my French literacy. Sandy says, last minute, huge thanks for your Infinity podcast. You saved me from fading out of the game. Oh, that's so nice, man. The Infinity podcast, I think, is a great example of why everyone should do a podcast. Honestly, and this is not me, like, one, I consume podcasts more than almost any other type of media because I'm one of those people that can't concentrate unless I have something going on upstairs. So like I'm listening to podcasts when I build things in the studio. I'm listening to podcasts when I paint miniatures. But having a podcast as an excuse to hang out with people you aren't physically able to hang out with that much and talk about things you would talk about anyway on a schedule, I'll be honest, for men in their 40s, even in your 30s, we're so shit at maintaining relationships. I mean, maybe some of you out there will disagree with me. I'm terrible at maintaining my friendships. I'm just bad at it. Every practical thing gets in the way as a priority for me. Scheduling my friendships and like being able to like hang out with friends and talk about things that we know we all enjoy. It's such a good cathartic, like therapeutic thing for me. So I'm glad that you're enjoying the podcast because, man, I love making the podcast and we are really, really into it. BJJ Zombie says, any possibility of a new Last Days book? There is, yeah. I'm considering doing like an omnibus version of Last Days and including like timelines and stuff in it. Doing a big version, but I'd have to decide who I want the publisher to be and what I want that to look like before I start to work on it. But doing like a Game of the Year edition or whatever version of it, you know what I mean? Like doing like the big edition of it or the ultimate edition of it, the bundled edition, is something I've been thinking about doing for the last little while. And yeah, it's on my radar for things I want to do in the next couple of years. All right, we're almost out of time. Let's take a few more questions. And what have I got in the coming up section here? What do I want to talk about? Oh yeah, so coming up. So yeah, a couple things coming up. First thing is I am doing a GMG review for the War Transformed, which we already talked about a little bit. I'm doing a Witches and Wonders on these things, which I'm super pumped for. They're called rulebook tabs, and in fact, my patrons are going to get a discount code for these to grab. I think right now, I think it's live. Which I'll post in the description of this video on Patreon because these are awesome. One of the things I struggle with the most is flipping through all my rulebooks. Mike had these for his Blood Bowl rulebook. And I've got some sets for Necromunda and stuff now as well. And then also, what was the other one? Shout out to my boy Mike Crutchett and Verrettwood. He's doing a flash sale today for Verrettwood. So if you're looking for some Spookaboo miniature game stuff, his horror cult like game, with like sort of like the ritual Midsommar kind of themes to it, of like a weird sort of like village that's turned to a cult all lost in a wood, is on sale right now. There's something else. Oh shoot, what was it? I literally made my notes and then looked at them like 3 times throughout this whole thing. I'm doing some more travel. Oh yeah, this being patrons live and then going to YouTube afterwards. I want to start a book club, which is something I've been talking about in the future. As I did the book review for Aftermath, that's another thing I want to include in the patron thing, is like doing like a live show like this and doing like an 8-chapter, like we do a book like every quarter, and every month we sit down and we review like 8 chapters basically. I'm going to do it with probably a guest. We'll each read the book and then have you guys in the chat give us your opinions as like part of like the recording of the show, which I think would be fun too. And then, oh yeah, and to kick that off, I've got some old copies of Inferno that I want to review to look at some old stuff, I think, and like where grimdark literature came from and where it is now. All right, what else we got? We've been playing Kill Team a lot. My gaming group is only just read Only Forward by Michael Marshall in our book club, and now we're playing on an OG 1984 Paranoia RPG skirmish campaign using the Stargrave rules. That sounds awesome. Paul Spanchen says, I'm heavily influenced by 2000 AD Invasion and Judge Dredd in Cursed Earth. They introduced you to the gritty art style, although Major Easy in battle was pretty close. Yeah, absolutely. Chase is signing off because he's going to work. Jason Palfrey says, do you have any input in the new Silver Bayonet Canadians from North Star Miniatures? They look fantastic. I had no input on North Star's miniatures at all, but they do look great. I'm glad they got excited about the Canada supplement and made some cool models for it. But no, I've not been in touch with North Star or Nick at all. So I hadn't seen them until I think I saw the same previews you probably did. Jake C says, I used to go to the Rumble on Route 66, a large Infinity tournament. So the podcast you're doing is really great. Wow, thank you so much. GMG, the Game of the Year edition sounds perfect. Just need to come up with a heavily biased GMG award show. Yeah, exactly. Crucial says, sweet clutch poster. This ground says I should do a review of the Imperial Guardsman's uplifting primer. And Bjorn Kuma says, I would offer that generally the late 70s through 80s was a grimdark era. A lot of kids and teen media was pretty dark overall. Yeah, it's funny. I think that's a pretty big consensus for people, is that that like 80s to 90s. I mean, just look at grunge, right? Just look at the music coming out of that area. There's a real disaffected sort of like feeling in that generation that I think is reflected in like the art and media that got made and then got consumed as well. So it'll be interesting to see what we come up with and what that looks like, I think, overall, like as far as like a series. But man, there's so many movies and TV shows and books. Like I've been reading Harlan Ellison again, who is this like incredibly dark. If you've ever played the old text-based adventure, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, it is... Harlan Ellison is a crazy author. He wrote tons of the TV shows that you probably never knew he wrote and watched. He wrote a lot of Star Trek. And he is like a very cynical, dark science fiction writer that is one of my favorites. It is well worth watching, or well worth playing that game, and well worth reading his short fiction too. All right, last couple comments. Algebra King says, podcasts are great to listen to while painting miniatures, and I do listen to your Affinity podcast all the time. Volcano says, are you currently invested in building terrain for Legions Imperialis? Not really. No, I have tons of Epic terrain already because I played tons of Epic. And then Marky Battle Beset says, Dune by David Lynch. Obviously, yes. All Dune. Dune is baked into 40K. Dune, Starship Troopers, Forever War, like so much of that like 60s and 70s, 50s, 60s and 70s science fiction is just like hard baked in to Warhammer 40,000. The same way that like Elric and Stormbringer are baked into like the lore of like Warhammer in general and like that feeling of grimdark. Loved your Gorgers look based on Bone Tomahawk. Looking forward to getting mine done soon. Yeah, they are amazing. Jason Palfrey asks, would you consider, have you done a video outlining the process of game creation, as in what aspects make a quality skirmish type game? I mean, I wrote that in the foreword to Last Days. The three like major things that I think are great in skirmish games that are like campaign based and like bring you back to them. They're in the foreword to that book, but it basically boils back down to memorable moments, Cracker Jacks, and Ever Afters were the three names that I gave it to them. And it's that like idea that a game needs to have surprises for you. Even if you understand how it works, there needs to be something. Basically, you need teaser bits of information during the gameplay experience for your headcanon to unfold. The Cracker Jacks is you need to leave the game with something that the post game carries that forward to, these surprises. And then the Ever Afters are the reason to play your next game. There needs to be something you're chasing, or a broad narrative, or a broad sort of like unfolding thing happening for you to want to play again and again and again. And those three beats, I think, in game creation are the difference between like a game that has longevity and a game that doesn't. And I think that the problem probably with modern gaming is the pursuit of fairness, that esportsness of it has reduced those three things to they're very, very, like they're either coming from a different experience, like Magic cards, the Cracker Jackness of it is the opening packs. The Ever Afters in Magic or in any kind of like deck building or card game is the going back and restructuring your deck to see what happens the next time you play it against something that defeated you or something that won, like that tinkering. Those aren't really provided by the game. They're provided by the rules. They're provided by the gameplay experience or the like competitive format or like the Friday Night Magic like of it all, I guess, the DCI of it all. So yeah, that would be my comment, is like, I think that the downforce on those probably is one of the things that's currently happening in gaming. Would you consider doing, no, wait, sorry. Where are we going? When, if you think Heroic 28 GW figures will reach 54 mil? That's funny. I don't know. They keep getting bigger in some regards, but smaller in others. Like the new Imperial Guardsmen are pretty much the same size. Actually, they're in some ways smaller than the old ones. Mark Langiel says, catch you later this week at HowCon. Yeah, man, we'll see you there. Rob Mooney says, new logo, new music. What made you decide to change them? That's funny. That was for me. I really needed to do that. One of the first things I did when I started editing videos again, I threw out all my presets. I literally wiped and it was terrifying, but I wiped my Final Cut Pro library and started a new one. Wiped all my external drives, got rid of it all. I needed to force myself to do things differently, to film things differently, to do things in a different space and relearn it all over again. I'd gotten so comfortable in like the way I was doing things that it became like meaningless. I wasn't learning anything new. I wasn't doing anything in a different way. So I forced myself to start from scratch and actually like start doing new things. And that I needed to feel like I was turning a page. And that did a lot for me, like psychologically, to make me excited to do things again and try new things and experiment and just like fuck around and like not know what the result was going to be when I was capturing stuff even. That was like a big, I needed that. Like I really needed to shake things up. And so that was just part of it, was I needed to like change the music and change the logo and like get excited to find new music and do stuff. What else we got? We need to get you an event in Vancouver. I'd love to see you on the West Coast. Well, I'm planning on flying out to the next Colder Than Carbonite and go hang out with Owen and Dan. They came to see me last time, so I'm going to go see them this time. We're just going to keep trading back and forth. So the plan is I'll be in Edmonton. It's close. It's not quite there. If anyone wants to fly me to Vancouver, though, I'll happily go see my boys in Vancouver. I got friends out in Vancouver. I'd love to go visit. So yeah, you want to send me to a con? I'll come do an appearance. HowCon flies me out every year, so I'm happy to. I'll trade coasts. We'll trade coasts for panels and moderation. I'll do panels. I'll moderate if you want, and I'll flog Steel Rift, which is what I'm doing this year. And I think we're done. It's 12:17. We're way past done. Oh man. Well, so if I didn't get to any of your comments. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. There's just like 130 of you guys for hanging out for like an hour. So I'm planning on doing this. Next week, I'll probably skip it because I'm flying back from Halifax. If I do it, it'll be just from my phone. It'll be like super brief. I'll do like a quick, like just pop in live show. But yeah, this was fun and I will definitely do this again. So yeah, I think this was a success. This was like the concept I wanted to do. And I hope you guys had a good time and enjoyed it as well. And I'll see you for this format again. We'll see what the news is from HowCon. You guys can catch up and we can chat and see what's going on. So bye everybody.